Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, whatever part of the world you are tuned in from. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. It is what? January, March 18th, 2023. This episode 173. As always, brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. Go to www.gvegas.webs.com. Go green, go fresh, get it shipped right to your door. Today, we are here to discuss one of the legendary comics. I mean, this is a guy who started it all, man. Mr. Groucho Marx. And to do that, I have on guest Ricky Mapleton. Are you
Hello,
going by
sir.
Ricky Mapleton or?
Yes, hello. How you doing, Dennis?
All right, I don't know. Are you Eric or Ricky today, or who are you?
We're Ricky Mapleton all the way.
All
every
right,
day.
Ricky. All right. Well, let's start out. I sent you over a list of comics to discuss, and out of the list I sent over, you chose Groucho Marx. What made you choose him?
That was a tough list. I really had to think about that. Carol Burnett really jumped out at me as a possibility. I thought that was a great choice. But Groucho, classic comic, really just still have an impact today.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer when I send you a list of legends. I mean, no matter who you chose, it was a win-win. But let's get into it. Julius Henry Marx, better known by his stage name Groucho Marx, comedian, actor, writer. He worked the stage, film, radio, a singer, television, vaudeville. This guy did it all. Considered to be the master of quick wit. Made 13 feature films with his siblings, the Marx brothers. Successful career on radio and television, most notably for Bet Your Life. What do you remember him most for?
I think I was exposed to him first on the show You Bet Your Life.
That was the game show. Okay.
Yeah,
Did you know Jay Leno was actually bringing that back? He's got a version going of it now.
I watched a little bit of it. I really wasn't drawn into it.
Really?
Yeah. Did you have a chance to watch any of the of Jay Leno's You Bet Your Life?
I have not seen it yet. No, I have not.
I don't know, Dennis. I think that maybe sometimes when they're trying to redo a show, they should at least try to grab a lot of parts that made the show funny. The more improv, not as
scripted.
Not as scripted.
Right.
I did notice they played the secret word. Are you familiar with that on Groucho Marx's end?
Yeah. You get bonus money if you say the secret word, right?
Say the secret word, won $100. So I was thinking maybe I write down a couple secret words here.
All right.
See if you get them during our podcast.
Okay.
In respect to Groucho Marx.
Well, let's see if we stumble on them. All right. Well,
okay. And I won't send you $100, but I'll take you out for a nice lunch if you say this. You want to do it on my end too? Scratch down a word.
Well, I wasn't prepared for that, but I'll think about one. All right. But
all right, I'm gonna write one. I'm gonna write yours down one time. All right. I think this is gonna be an easy one, Dennis.
All right. Well, Dave Attell, he tried to bring back the Gong Show on Comedy Central.
I didn't see this.
And his biggest, it bombed. But it was only a few episodes. I mean, it just goes to show his biggest star as Dave Attell was. He couldn't bring back the Gong Show.
Lot to be said about the guy the host of the Gong Show. A lot of conspiracy theories.
A lot of controversy surrounding. We could do a whole episode on just him.
Yes.
They had what? They had the Man Show. Are you familiar with the Man Show on Comedy Central?
Yes, absolutely.
It was originally Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, who were lifelong friends. Then when Jimmy went on to do bigger things, they redid the show with Doug Stanhope and Joe Rogan. And like you said, the reason it was funny is because Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, they had no script. They just goofed around. Yep. And when Joe Rogan and Doug Stanhope, it was so scripted, it only lasted, I think, a season, and they took it off.
I think they really were drinking libations.
Oh, yeah, they had limos who drove them home after the show. They could get as drunk as they want because they weren't driving,
Yeah,
well, it's hard to follow Groucho. I mean, when he makes so much of a successful game show like that, it's tough for anybody to follow and redid what he did.
That was near the end of his career, the You Bet Your Life.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll get into it later. He was already a huge star before he got that. I mean, that made him into a bigger one, but he was already a well-known act before he did that. His distinct appearance was a carryover from the vaudeville days, where he had to get dressed up to do vaudeville. His stoop posture, spectacles, cigar, thick mustache, and eyebrows. Let's see. which he created. Have you ever seen, you go into like the Halloween shop and you see like the little glasses with the rubber
Yes.
nose, and
Yeah.
he's the guy who created those, and they still stick around to this day. What do you think that says about him?
Does he have the rights to the rubber nose and glasses?
I don't have that answer. He's made a lot of money if he does, because
Yeah,
they were
wow,
a big
yeah.
seller for sure.
That just kind of, you see somebody wearing those, they're kind of um maybe a lot of people don't know they're paying homage to Groucho Marx when they're wearing a
Yeah,
rubber.
yeah. I mean, the younger generation probably don't know where half the stuff came from, which I
Mm-hmm,
got to admit, some
mm-hmm.
of the stuff I didn't even know. Let's see. Now I love everybody. I mean, everybody knows Groucho Marx, obviously, but this is what I love about Funny Like on podcast is we find out how he became a big star, because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
this, but Groucho's mother, okay, her brother, his uncle, was a vaudeville performer, and when he visited, I mean, he came from a poor family. When he visited, he always gave the kids coins. He did like some joke and give them a coin. Then they always loved him because of that, because they were a poor family. Hey, we're getting coins. This guy's making money at vaudeville. So they actually approached him and asked if, they could write an act for them, the kids, the Marx Brothers, and he agreed, and his mom supported him, and they became the Four Nightingales. Have you ever heard that term of them?
Yes, yeah,
That
yep.
was before they were the Marx Brothers, or the Four Nightingales.
I believe that was
Now, while they
before.
were doing, which mostly they sang, okay, because I guess one
Yes,
of his
yes,
brothers
yes.
was an established piano player, okay. It was
Mm-hmm.
vaudeville was mostly singing. I guess during a Texas show, they bombed so bad at singing that the crowd was not into it whatsoever, that just for their own amusement, they started just telling jokes on stage among each other, and they got a great reaction from the crowd for doing it. Then, that opened up the door to them where, hey, geez, they're liking us telling jokes better than us singing, so they worked that into their act. But
Mm-hmm.
have you ever had a night where you were bombing and just finally said the hell with it and just started goofing off? Or
Yeah, absolutely. More times than success, I would say.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Try to block those out, but at the same token, those are kind of golden moments in the world of entertainment when
those are
you're,
the ones you learn from them, that's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But Groucho's super quick wit. That's kind of what he was known for. Even in the, um, you were right at the part when they left, when vaudeville they started doing comedy, and then they did a couple of movies that kind of really blasted them into superstardom
The next
almost.
level, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what was one of them? Horse feathers.
Yeah, I got them coming up here.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So like you were saying, they were in vaudeville, started doing comedy, and then how long did they last, and how long did they stay in vaudeville before they wanted to expand out?
it says they started cracking jokes. The audience, so they responded. They modified their act to do it. They ended up performing the next 7 years in vaudeville. So I mean,
So that's
7 years
like,
at anything, that's a good run right
I would
there.
imagine that's like a circuit. Vaudeville would be going to town to
Yeah,
town.
they moved out west because I guess it was more popular out in the west, where they did like
Mhm.
Texas, California. I mean, it was all the whole West Coast. You could do a vaudeville circuit. Yeah,
But they based it out of New York and kind of, I guess, went
that's where they
west.
started. Was in New York, right?
Yeah, wow, that's
They actually became New York's Palace Theater's top act,
mm.
which I mean that's that's saying something right there.
What year was this? 1920s,
Yeah, it had to
30s.
be late 20s, early 30s back then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They actually they became so popular at New York's Palace that they had three hit plays on Broadway, and no other comic at that point in time that had experienced, to touch into the Broadway scene. That was more, mainstream actors who took it serious, not really comedy acts. But they became so popular that
Huh.
they were able to get into the Broadway scene and be successful at it. You ever played Broadway?
I went to Broadway once.
Okay,
Uh,
that counts.
yeah, I saw not a vaudeville act, but I saw Deep Purple.
Oh,
Uh,
all right.
it,
That's an act in
it was
itself, right
I
there.
was in Broadway. I did see a lot of the quite a happening scene down right on that. What's that corner called? The gateway to the
Yeah.
where they do the New Year's Eve. Isn't that considered kind of
Oh, yeah, Times Square.
Times Squares? Broadway's. I'm not. I don't know my logistics obviously on New York, but
Right. I played Broadway Comedy Club one time. That was a.
didn't you go? Didn't you play Dangerfields a few
I
times?
played Dangerfield and I played the Gotham down there. Yeah, so.
What was that? Those are
Yeah, it
wow.
was like Dangerfields. They never upgraded. They just kept it looking like the '70s. So that was like
Yeah,
a trip back in time when you went in there, as opposed to the Gotham's like this state of the art comedy facility where
really.
it was two different things. Yeah, but
Wow. So what's the inside of that look like? The one that Dangerfields, is it
yeah, it's all
vinyl?
'70s decor, all the furniture, all the it's all. It's really like taking a step back in time when you walk in there. You feel the atmosphere just turns like in you. You're back to the '70s. It was really.
Wow.
It was good. Let's see. Well, like I said, by the time the Groucho Marx Brothers hit Hollywood to make movies, they were well-known stars already at this point. By the time Groucho did "You Bet Your Life," he had already performed for over half a century on
Yeah.
the circuit. So I mean,
Yeah.
half a century on the circuit.
But getting back to that, you asked me, how did I get exposed to them through You Bet Your Life? For sure. But then it was hard to catch movies of the Marx Brothers back in the when I was getting exposed to comic 70s. You know,
Yeah, they weren't replaying them or anything like that where
no,
you could
no.
catch them.
So
Yeah,
it was
not
kind of
like
like
today where we can click a button on the internet. Back then, you had to wait for it to come on,
when I when
TV.
I when I first saw a Marx Brothers film, I don't really think I didn't know what to expect. And being in that mindset of a teenager, I was sort of like, I don't know if I like this because they would break into songs, a lot of music. And
Yeah, it
then every
was.
once in a while, I was kind of looking forward to see Groucho make some sort of innuendo joke during the movie.
Right.
And that's what I was kind to grab onto. But I believe most of their movies had some music in it because of Harpo and Zeppo.
Yeah,
And
well, even Groucho, he was a well established. He wrote some popular songs
was he
too.
a singer?
Yeah, he
Was
was a
he
singer also. Yeah. Well,
in,
do you
in
remember the old Vlasic uh, pickle commercial where they did they'd hold up a pickle and that was the best tasting pickle I ever heard. They did like a
yes,
Groucho commercial. That was
yes.
my first exposure to him was the pickle commercial.
Yeah. That's I mean that whole, like you were saying, that whole way of coming across when you're doing your act, that little
Yeah.
shtick. I guess it would be a shtick, when he would break into
Oh, it was all from vaudeville. Like, yeah, you didn't just
right.
tell jokes. You had to dress up. You had to get
Mm.
a catchphrase. You had to do a character. It wasn't just stand up there like nowadays and tell jokes. That was a whole different scene. Let's see. He made 26 movies in all, 13 with his
Wow.
brothers Chico and Harpo.
26.
Total, right? Yeah, 13 with his brothers. Known as a wisecracking hustler. He made his first movie in silent film in 1921, and it was never released. And it was believed to be destroyed at the time. But could you imagine nowadays if somebody could find that actually the first film that Groucho ever did and it was never released? But I'm a Sam Kinison film fan, and a lot of people don't know he was in the movie The Three Amigos, and his scenes were cut because Bill Murray, he was not Bill Murray, Chevy Chase was worried he was going to steal the scene like he did in Dangerfield's Back to School, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
want Kinison stealing. I said, if you could ever find that footage, okay, of Kinison in The Three Amigos, but it was believed to be destroyed back then. You just videotaped over,
He was in the movie The
he
Three
was in
Amigos.
it, but they cut his scenes out. Yeah, Chevy Chase had his scenes cut out because he didn't want him stealing the film like he did in Back to School.
Yeah. Oh my God,
But
did he ever steal that? What a
yeah, and
classic.
people have been looking for the footage, but it's like back then they didn't save every piece of footage; they just recorded over it. So it probably got.
Is that the only movie that's Sam Kinison stole the scenes
He was
from
in
that?
another movie really early on. He played called Savage Dawn. He played it was like a low budget. He played a barber, a preaching barber. But he was pretty funny in that one too. Yeah. But yeah, man, if you could ever find the first, footage of Groucho's first movie, boy, you'd be a millionaire instantly. Uh, let's see. His later hits were, I don't know, have you heard any of these? The Coconuts, Animal Crackers,
Yep.
Monkey Business,
Mm-hmm.
Horse Feathers, Duck Soup, and A Nightmare at the Opera. Any of those ring a bell to you?
Yeah, I've heard of them all.
You've heard of them all? Okay, I've heard of a few. I can't
I've
say
heard of
all,
them
but
all. I think Duck Soup. What was that later on?
Yeah, that was my the second to last. Yeah, second.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I thought, to revisit those wouldn't be a bad. Uh, are they available? Oh no, are Marx Brothers films
Oh, I'm sure
available?
online. Yeah, you could find them online somewhere. I'm
You
sure.
think
Yeah,
they're on like Netflix or?
I don't know about that, but if you Googled it, I'm sure Google will put you in the right direction where you can find them. I
Mm-hmm,
mean,
mm-hmm. Isn't that amazing though, Dennis? That the availability of
yeah, the
what you
day, and
can
that's what I
find.
said. It's not like when we grew up, you had to wait for something to come on. Now, I mean, even comedy when we were kids, what was it? Saturday Night Live or late night with Johnny Carson or David Letterman. It was like that
Yep,
was it. There was no other place to see comedy as opposed to now Comedy Central, Netflix. I mean, it's YouTube. It's at your fingertips.
maybe too much.
Yeah, it can get watered down sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you really gotta. But I mean, I think it's a good thing too. I mean, back in the olden days, if you wanted to be a serious comic, you had to sell all your furniture, get in your car, and go to either New York, move to New York or LA. That was it. If you wanted to be a comedian, where nowadays with the power of the internet, I mean, you can become a star in any town in the United States. So it's hurt it where it's more watered down, but it's helped it out too, where you can do what you want wherever you want now. The industry don't control you anymore. There's a lot of
Oh,
lot of
Dennis, there's the word.
what's that?
Industry.
Industry. All right. Yeah, I hit the secret
Say this.
word.
Dennis Wirth said the secret word. He wins lunch with Ricky Mapleton.
All
Yeah.
right. That's the best tasting pickle I ever
Congratulations.
heard. Well,
Didn't
thank
the
you.
duck used to come down?
But
The
yeah,
duck.
there was a duck that used to the duck will come down if you hit the secret word.
Now
Okay.
did the duck does the duck come down on Jay Leno's You Bet Your Life?
I haven't seen it. Well, you've seen it, not me. I don't know. Did they have a duck?
I haven't seen it. I
Haven't
tried to
seen a
sit
duck yet?
through
No.
one and I was like, they were doing the secret word, but it was very. Oh, speaking of that, Dennis, do you know why Groucho Marx You Bet Your Life was canceled abruptly?
Why was
This
it
bit of
canceled?
useless knowledge, I know.
I don't know. Fill me in.
He made some sort of innuendo about his cigar and his guest or the people, the contestants. A lot of times he had very attractive women, but they were dressed very nicely of the third, whatever, 40s and 50s, that kind of, you know, they had a kind of like a standard type that they would bring on.
Right.
Uh, and he made some sort of off, not off color, but more sexual joke. Uh, uh, but it was nothing in compared to today.
Right, right. Back then, you couldn't do much with.
But I
Well, you
believe
remember
he.
Richard Dawson? He used to kiss all the girls before he asked them
I
questions. I mean,
know.
it's a different day and
Well,
age.
yeah. What a Family Feud.
Yeah, Family Feud. Yeah,
Yeah. So I believe you can look that up. I thought that's why he got
really.
his career ended on You Bet Your. I mean, his career didn't end,
Right,
but
right,
he
right.
kind of said no more.
Well, he worked on radio for a long while, and
What did he
which he
do?
hosted. Originally started on radio. You Bet Your Life was like a radio game show, and then it went over to TV. Ran for 11 years. It aired on ABC, CBS, and NBC. So those were all the major networks back then. He,
Wow.
he hit
Wow.
every one. 1950, it moved over from radio to TV. So
Wow.
yeah, that's
Can we go back to his movies a little bit? I know those are to
yeah. I mean,
me.
I'd like to discuss some more, but I can't say I've seen any. Like, so I really
Okay.
wouldn't know what to.
Who do you want to discuss? Like the his family? Like I know Harpo, because he the gentleman with who didn't talk? Is that Harpo?
Harpo, one of them it was said had a like they each had their shtick. Like we
Yeah.
said, Groucho had the hunch over with the cigar.
Yeah.
One of them did like a really thick German accent, which was
Mm-hmm.
popular until World War II, where we were at war with the Germans. Then he got booed every time he did it, so he
Yeah.
had to change his character.
I think
Then
Harpo because he played the harp, I believe.
is that what it was? Okay, I know
Yeah.
one of his brothers was an established piano player. He actually
Yeah.
was very good. He took classes and stuff, while the other ones just came out and did it.
And they show off. They don't show up, but they show their talents on most all the movies. Like A Night at the what is it called? Opera, a catastrophe at the opera. What was that called?
Nightmare at the Opera.
Nightmare at the Opera. I believe there's many scenes when craziness and a lot of physicals coming around, and in the back you'll see one of the Marx brothers is playing the piano, kind of like along with it, like a classic
Okay.
silent movie. kind of thing. There's always a lot of music in it.
Well, I know Duck Soup. Do you remember back in the day, Boston actually used to have a comedy club called Duck Soup?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a reference to Groucho or why they named it that, but I
Mm.
saw that. That's certainly, yeah, animal crackers. I guess those have been around for a while. I guess he's after the old kids' crackers there. I don't know. The
I'm not.
coconuts. Let's see. Now the show, You Bet Your Life, it had popular phrases, which you've already said the secret word, which I've already hit,
Mhm. Congratulations.
and thank you. The phrase was, and the duck will come down and pay you $50 if you hit the secret word. So I don't know.
Correct.
Do
Yeah.
you remember the show? What did they have? An actual duck that came down, or how did it
No, it
work?
was like on a swing.
Now, was it an
And
actual duck or like a
no, no,
stuffed
no.
duck
It
or
was a stuffed duck
a stuffed duck? Okay.
that had that looked like Groucho.
Oh,
He
okay.
had glasses on and a mustache and some sort of cigar hanging. Very uh
Where they have
basic.
like $50 in its bill or something that you grabbed, or
No, it just said say the secret word with $100.
all
And then the
right.
duck would come down, like someone would be on the top, obviously holding it above the stage, and they would drop it to, and the duck would come down like a swing above their heads, and
Okay.
and the audience would go, yay. And I don't even know if that was even a real audience. I'm not sure.
No, I think they did. They said they have live studio audiences, which for
Yeah.
back then, yeah, I mean that's
And how they went through the show, they would just like a classic game show. So he was crazy. He was one of the first game shows. I don't know when the
yeah,
first
yeah,
game
him
show
and
came out.
well, I guess it wasn't a game show. Yeah, Milton Berle, but that was a kid show. It wasn't a game show, but
Yeah.
yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I don't want to say he created the game show because I don't know, but it had to. Yeah, right. It had to be one of the first ones way back then. Yeah,
Boy, a game show episode would be would lots to talk about game shows.
I guess so.
We touched on your Gong Show and
Family
Groucho's.
Feud.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, let's see. The show also had the catchphrases, which you had to have heard these as a kid. Okay,
Hmm.
who's buried in Grant's tomb? That was originated on that show. Who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Oh, Grant?
Grant. There you go. Okay. And what color is the White House?
Why? Well, these are Groucho Marx sayings?
So those are popular like catchphrases they use weekly on the show. You Bet Your
Oh.
Life. They used to ask these questions all the time. Those were
To get them started, maybe
yeah,
there's
those are like popular questions that they
easy
use. Yeah,
questions.
questions where they give you the answer in the question.
Yeah, you had me stumped there for a second.
Yeah.
Not hard to do.
Let's see. He introduced us some popular songs. Hello, I Must Be Going, and Lydia the Tattooed Lady. Which I'll
Lydia.
say, I was a big Popeye the Sailor Man fan as a kid, and I remember Brutus singing Lydia the Tattooed Lady, and I thought it was just something they did for the cartoon. Little
Oh,
did I know they stole it from
was
they got it
that
from Groucho.
was that Lydia? Oh, Lydia Encyclopedia. That's a Groucho song. I don't know if it's the same song.
I don't know. I remember
Lydia,
Brutus
oh,
swinging around
Lydia.
singing Lydia the Tattooed Lady.
Maybe that's one of the verses. Lydia, little encyclopedia. Lydia,
Maybe, yeah,
Lydia.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that was a big radio hit.
Yeah, that was a. Well, I know you're a musician too, where I know you do songs too. So
I'm always on the
yeah, I
on the
mean, you're
cry.
like Groucho. He's a comedian, which he did some, parodies of like, not parody songs, but funny
Parodies.
songs.
Yeah, when you say parodies, you mean like observations of
Well,
society?
parodies like Weird Al, where he takes somebody else's song and he
Oh,
make it
okay.
funny.
Oh, did Groucho take
But
that song?
Groucho didn't do that. He just wrote his own songs. He wrote his own songs and just made his
As
own
he's kind
songs.
of that's how he's viewing life, if you would.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are
Remember
some of
who
your what are
Lydia?
some of your songs that you're more proud of that you've done, comedy
I
song wise?
My favorite songs.
Yeah.
I'd have to go way back to the beginning when I used to work with Matt Farley. A song called "Life Was Like a Pancake." Um, it's sort of on the inspiration of "Spam" by Monty Python.
Okay.
That sort of feel and sound. Um, yeah, that's most proud of. Oh God, I guess maybe some songs I'm proud of, sometimes I'm not.
There's gonna be, yeah, it's like comedy. So some nights you live for it, other nights you just want to get out of there. Some nights are better than others.
Yeah, you told me briefly, Dennis, that you came out of the did some stand up pre after COVID.
Finally, I did. I did went down and did a song up in Worcester, and to say I was rusty would be an understatement. I was
Mhm.
rusty, but I got put on at the last minute too. So I mean, I didn't really have time to prepare. It was one of those hop in a car, go and do it. So
Oh
maybe if
wow,
I had time to prepare, but I mean, it
that's
felt
great
good
that
to
you
be
got out
back
and did
on
it.
stage. That's for sure.
Has the bug rebitten you?
Well, you know what happened was it wasn't that the bug ever left. It was that,
Right,
the
right.
pandemic hit, none of us got to perform. Then you get lazy, and I thought about going back, and I had like, you know, three of my close friends pass away. And when you lose half of your posse, I stopped thinking about comedy. I started thinking, geez, is my will in place? Is my funeral arrangements made? I mean,
Yeah,
you start thinking about death and not comedy. But so what I did is I went down and I made my funeral arrangements. I went down and I made my will. So I got that taken care of. So now I'm getting back to worrying about comedy where, hopefully I live to a ripe old age, but if death comes, I'm prepared for it, which,
yeah. Well, I
but
think it's awesome that you step back out there. That's good.
yeah, yeah, it's, always
I see
important to
it.
do what you love to do.
Yeah, it's definitely like anybody who's ever done or tried stand up, it's definitely a unique adrenaline rush, win, lose, or draw
Well,
on your.
I've seen so many people, they think they're going to knock it out of the park like first time up. And I've seen people go up and they bomb and then, oh, no, this ain't for me. I'm not going to do it. And they don't, you got to get, everybody's bombing. You got to get over that before you get good. Everybody thinks they're going to be good right off the bat. I've seen a few comics quit and I tell them, no, you got to get through that to get better. Then you'll start enjoying it.
Yeah, but much like yourself, Dennis, who's a uh, great stand-up comic. But you have eggs in other baskets. You've made movies, you've made short movies. You're always up to something
Yeah, I
besides
don't
doing
let the
stand-up.
industry control me. It was kind of early on, I learned that. It's like, we've talked about it. You got to kind of kiss ass in comedy if you want to get anywhere. You really got to. And it's like I'm not really that. It's like so. I got to the point where it's like, well, if you won't let me into your comedy club, I've asked you about 10 times. I'm not asking you 11. I'll start my own comedy club. I'll compete
Yep.
against you. I mean, I tried to
Joke
get
in the
on someone's
box was
TV
your
show,
what?
the
It was joke in the box.
Joke in the Box comedy clubs, yeah, which were making a
Yeah.
comeback. I tried to get on a TV show for the longest time. They wouldn't let me on. Finally, like, all right, you know what? I'll start my own. I'll start my own TV show. So
Yep.
I'm motivated in that way where I'm not just gonna
But
sit around and wait for somebody else.
that's the life of an artist. You have that in your head, and you want to do creative things. It's just sort of like someone who likes to tear apart a car in an afternoon. I know many people that's what they love to do, and some of
That's
them
what I
make a
said.
living doing
Some
it. But
people go drinking for a weekend and spend a few hundred, or some people go to the gamble for spend a. I go out spend a few hundred on comedy. That's just what I do.
yeah, exactly. You definitely everybody needs their own thing that
Well,
they
you
do.
mentioned the movie. You were in the movie with me. The world needs a new superhero, and you
Which I
asked your favorite song. That was my favorite song. You wrote the theme song for the movie, and you
oh
sent that
thank
over to
you.
me. I was literally belly laughing in my chair listening to that song.
Oh yeah. I believe the song is called Super
The child sports
Child
superhero
Support Superhero.
bank
Yeah,
account balance at zero.
yeah.
That
Well,
was a
thank you for
genius
saying that,
lineup.
Dennis, because I when I did that, I just kind of playing around in front of my garage band setup.
Yeah,
Um, I think we were in the process of filming the movie,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
or right before we started filming. You were talking to me about it.
yeah, yeah.
I have is that was I'll tell you, Dennis, a thing that I always remember till they put me in the incinerator is when you had your premiere of the movie
Yeah.
and everyone was there that had a part of it. It was a great feel in the air. And then I heard the child, I mean, the world needs a new superhero song coming through on the speakers in the
Right, right,
theater.
right.
And I was like, oh my God,
When you hear it with a great sound like that, it gives whole new meaning
no,
to it.
and I've never heard it with a great sound like that again.
Yeah, right, right, right.
I got chills. And then the movie, I heard you're making, the rumor is that you're making part two.
We're hoping to make part two this summer. Yeah, I got to get my butt in gear here, but we're getting there.
How's the script coming along?
I got most of it in my head. It's just getting it on paper and fine tuning it and getting it to
Mhm. Again, it's time.
Where,
It's time over work life versus creative life.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's only so many hours. All right, I'm getting notified. We got 10 minutes left here. Well, nine something now. So let's see. Did you know that he made a film with Frank Sinatra, Groucho Marx, and Frank Sinatra named Double Dynamite?
Bubble what?
Double Dynamite.
No.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know he worked with Frank Sinatra, but
What was
I
it?
guess he was one of the top comics of the time. So I mean, if you want to work Sinatra, he's the guy. But
Did
if I was
Groucho,
going to see a movie, that'd be the one.
was there any talk shows during the 50? It must be 15, 16. Must have appeared on them a
Yeah,
ton of
he did.
times.
It was what Jack Parr, I think, was before Johnny Carson. He was on like right when Jack Parr was ending and Johnny Carson was taking over. So I think he
Mm-hmm.
did the show during both eras.
He definitely, I would say, if you're Mount Rushmore of comics, Dennis, we got to put Groucho on that.
Groucho. Well, you got to go with generations because each generation is different.
Okay.
I
So what
just
do you
did one.
think?
I just did a podcast. The one I put out this week was on Anthony Jeselnik, and he's really a dark comic. And I said, he's kind of like the '80s Andrew Dice Clay. Then I thought about it like Bill Burr. He's kind of like the '80s Sam Kinison. So I think each generation really repeats itself with comedy. So I mean, like I said, Groucho was kind of before my time. Yeah, I do know his stuff, but I can't say I grew up listening to it. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you got to respect
You
what he
you
did,
heard
but I
you
couldn't
heard
know.
rumors of him,
Right, right.
you know?
Well, here's one I didn't know. This is there's all this interesting facts you found out about Groucho. Now, the mustache early on when he did it for vaudeville, it was like a stick-on thing that he'd stick on with tape. He didn't really have a mustache. It was like he'd stick it on and do the hunched over as part of the vaudeville act. Well, once he started performing every night, he had to rip that off his lip every night, and the skin was starting to tear apart on his lip because he was ripping it off every night. So what he ended up doing, he started using grease paint instead, and he painted it on. Okay, and when he looked in the mirror, he's like, "Oh my God, the mustache is so much darker than the rest of my hair." And he had to go on in a few minutes. He's like, "Well, the heck with it. I'll put it in my eyebrows too and make it match." And that's how the whole thick mustache and thick eyebrow thing came along. Was by accident because the grease didn't match his hair. He had to make it match, so he colored in his eyebrows too. And
What wasn't his hair slick black too, as it stuck out a little bit?
yeah, it was part of the, but I mean, he was remembered for the thick mustache and thick eyebrows, which were,
Oh, so he's using grease paint.
yeah, he used grease, and the only reason he did his eyebrows is because they didn't match. He's like, oh, I got to want, I'll do the,
Did he
went
did
on to be his
he
catch thing, yeah.
did he need glasses, or was that his
I think he needed glasses, but he wore regular glasses. He just wore the spectacles as part of the, because he thought they were funny type of thing, yeah.
okay, yeah.
He's got an autobiography, Groucho and Me, released in 1959, so I guess, yeah. If you want to learn about him, you listen to Funny Rock.com podcast, and if you're not happy, they go buy his autobiography and look into it more. I think 1968 he made one of his last movies. It was called Skiddo. He did that with Jackie Gleason and Carol Channing.
Oh boy.
You ever heard of that one? I mean, that's got to be something, yeah.
No, I did see Jackie Gleason, a little the classic part in Smoking the Bandit,
Yeah, yeah, the sheriff,
when he
yeah.
was yelling and screaming.
And the Honeymooners, and yeah, I mean, it was.
Oh boy. Dennis, we're just scratching the surface how amazing this Groucho Marx was.
Yeah, I mean, he was in, well, Frank Sinatra, Jackie Gleason. I mean, these are all the names of the time. You imagine those all on a couch on the Johnny Carson show? I mean,
Was he
that
ever
must be
he died in what, 70 something?
77.
So I wonder if he ever was on the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson.
Yeah, he was on Carson's Tonight Show. Yeah,
Oh my
he was on
gosh.
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, here's one I know you're a fan. Did you know this one? He became close friends with Alice Cooper,
Mm,
and
really?
they
Oh
appeared
yes,
together.
yes. Okay, yeah.
Did you know that? Okay.
Yes, I did. Um quickly, from what I understood, is that he went to an Alice Cooper show
Okay.
during the time when Alice Cooper was getting criticized for how outrageous his stage act was.
Yeah.
And Groucho Marx said to him, he goes, somebody said, "What do you think of the Alice Cooper show?" He said, "It's vaudeville." That's what he told that. It's vaudeville. He's putting on a show.
Right. Right. Right.
Versus, oh, we're so scared of him. Oh, he's did all the parents. And Alice Cooper got it. And Alice Cooper talks about that. I've heard some interviews with him saying that that's what Groucho Marx thought of the show.
Now, do you know what the big thing is they did together, him and Groucho?
No, did they?
Yeah, they did something together that was kind of stood out. Do you know what it was or no?
No,
They
no.
appeared somewhere together. Where was it?
I don't know.
Don't know. They
Do
appeared on
you
the
know?
cover of Rolling Stone together, Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh my
Alice Cooper
God.
and Groucho Marx, which
Wow.
I have to Google that. I don't think I've ever seen that one. I've seen a lot of Rolling Stone covers, but I don't remember seeing that one.
Do you remember his classic line? He would be holding a beautiful woman, and the woman was saying closer, closer, closer. And Groucho Marx said, if I was any closer, I'd be standing in back of you.
Something I heard. Yeah, he was quick
That's about the
witted
only
with
Groucho Marx joke I
the
know.
one liner wits. Yeah, I guess. Now
Uh,
getting into, I guess, I don't know. How do you feel about this? He was known notoriously for being a joke thief. That he'd steal jokes, which nowadays that's really a taboo thing. But back then, when you did vaudeville, that was a common thing. Like they'd have these standard acts that everybody did. So it was like if everybody was doing them, nobody really claimed no to it. Which I did a podcast about Abbott and Costello, and their famous routine: who's on first, who's on second. One that
yeah.
had been done way before they did it. They were just the ones who brought it to mainstream. So it was like I don't know. What's your opinion on joke thievery?
Um, boy. Um, Obviously today's world, it's a lot more. You could see. Oh, say you were watching a YouTube video of a comic, that a famous comic, and he did one of your jokes that you think's one of your jokes. You would feel as a entertainer not very good about that. But
Dog agrees.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, there's subjects too. Say me and you,
That means I can't talk about a woman's feet if someone else has talked about a
Yeah, I
woman's
know.
feet.
That's what I'm saying. If me and you hit the same subject, I mean, the jokes may
Mhm.
sound alike, and neither one of us are a thief. We just kind of thought alike on the same subject.
I quickly recall a time that I was doing a show somewhere, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, that joke you said about this, that, the other thing, that's not your joke." And just some guy, probably whatever, had a few
Yeah,
libations. It was, and no, I know what I said to him. I said, "Thank you so much for listening."
there you go. At
Right? It's like, oh my God, you're
least
really,
he paid attention, right?
yeah. I was like thrilled.
All right, we got a minute and a half. Well, let's go. Well, we mentioned that Steve Martin came out and he said that he did a lot of Laurel from Laurel and Hardy's jokes. He just brought them to the next generation. He said so.
I
Here's
wonder
one
what
of the
Steve Martin jokes
Godfathers
they
of
were.
comedy saying, he did some Laurel from Laurel and Hardy jokes. No, Robin Williams, he got his ass kicked at the Comedy Store a couple of times for stealing jokes. So it's a common thing. I mean, yeah, I don't approve of it, but it's been done in comedy forever. Let's see. At the age of 86, Groucho Marx passed away in 1977. Unfortunately, his death was overshadowed by Elvis Presley, who passed away 3 days earlier. And they say what contributed to his death was he worked so hard at an old age at comedy, but it's so addictive you can't get away with it. I mean, I don't care how old I am. If a big opportunity pops up, I got to take it. And
Hmm.
things you didn't know, he's on I Dream of Jeannie. He appeared as himself, and Bob Hope presents also. But I mean,
I dream of
do you think you'll
Jeannie.
ever give up comedy, or do you think you do it to the day you die?
Well, Dennis, it's always in the back of your head. I used to keep notebooks. Now I have notes on my iPhone. I have, I'm always at the ready. So I think
Right.
and I'm always looking, but a couple of times I've reached out to, like you said, people that you've worked with before many times. And then they're like, oh, I got something next year. And it's
They
like,
forget you. Yeah, they forget you real quick in this business. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a couple open mics here in Manchester. One of the
Yeah.
pizza establishment on a Monday night.